naked shamanism. Welcome to With Insights Radio. I'm your host, Iggy Garcia. I will take you on a journey across the universe through shamanism, metaphysical, and holistic. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Welcome everybody to With Insights Radio. This is Iggy Garcia live, broadcasting from an undisclosed location in the universe. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Today I'm going to have a guest on. I'm going to have my friends from the Nemenhah and from, their organization that I work with closely. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, they also have a new holistic center called Spirit Winds Natural Healing Ministries. And they're going to be talking today. We're going to be talking about food as medicine. So that's going to be our topic today. We're going to be talking about how food can help us, do better in our lives, help us heal. Certain foods, things that can actually not help us also as well. There's some foods that are, too much of something is not always good for you. So that's what we're going to cover today. So hopefully you'll be able to hear the audio. I'm going to see if I can get Jonathan on here in a second. But I hope everybody's doing well. Everybody's doing okay. I'm just navigating through everything. I had a little bit of a difficult technical there, difficulty there for a second. I think my energy just amped up just because of the show. I'm excited about doing it. So for those of you who have questions and want to ask, Dr. Landis any questions about, food or anything, I'm sure the phone lines will be open and they'll be willing to answer your questions. You can ask questions here also on Facebook Live. We also have a chat room that's available on Blog Talk Radio for those of you who listen to our show regularly. I just opened it up, so running a little bit behind, not been too much. But hopefully, if you do want to call into the show as well, we have a number called, it's 646-595-3440 for those of you who want to call. And I missed you too, Laura. I don't know if I got lost. I don't know if I was in the wrong place. I don't know what happened. Either way, it wasn't meant to be. I wasn't meant to be there, and I have all this tequila, and, I didn't know what to do with it. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I hope you guys had a fun time drumming. But this is an interactive show, so if you have something that you want to put on the screen and share as we're doing this show, please do, and feel free to do that. Be no problem with that. It's pretty exciting. So we're going to see if I can get my friend here, Dr. Landis, Chief Landis. I don't know if I have both of them tonight or just one of them. But, Laura, I went to Adam's. I think I was at Adam's house. I don't know where I was. It was raining. It was muddy. There was big pits. I got stuck in the mud. I couldn't get out. I had to, help get some wood, and it wasn't a good thing. I was not meant to be at that drum circle. But either way, next time. But thanks for thinking about me, and I missed you too. I missed everybody. And I'm going to open up the phone lines again. Here we go. Hello, Dr. Landis. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. I'm here with Chief Cloud Pilot as well.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if he was coming, but I put his name on the promotion for the show, so I'm glad he's here. It's good to be here.
I are. It is good to be here. It's good for us to be here.
Yes, it is. And over there, too. So how you guys?
We're good.
Good. Well, we're doing a new format on the show here. We're actually doing a live streaming on Facebook as well as we're doing a blog talk show. I've got myself on the cell phone. Hopefully everything works out pretty good. You guys sound good. No problem there, so...
I was going to ask you, with the internet being the way it was today, I was like, how good is the connection? But it sounds pretty good on our end, too. So that's working.
Good. I don't know. The internet was kind of weird today. That's why I just walked away from it today. And then I came back and I couldn't get online. Skype was acting up. I don't know. It's the volcano in Hawaii, I think. It's just discharging a lot of energy or something. You do know there's a volcano erupted in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all over the headlines.
I drew a total blank.
Houses burning.
You were supposed to kind of go along with that. You go, yeah, or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm always a week behind on the news.
Well, I don't know a lot about volcanoes anyway, so they blow up, they break things, and they make good rocks for sweat lodge. That's what I know.
Yeah.
There you go. That's the start.
We had for a long time, we were working with Leonard Horowitz out there in Hawaii, and he had the neatest property. He had lava tubes on his property, and you could time when the steam was coming up, the seawater would get down into the lava tubes way down deep, and then they'd geyser up through the tubes. And these crazy guys out there will do their sweat lodges inside of lava tube caves that you can't get out of. So every time I think about a volcano, I think about what that must be like to be, sitting there on a rock when the steam comes out of the volcano and hits you in the face. And, those Hawaiians, they're crazy.
I guess so. Yep. To live on an island with a volcano, you have to be a little bit, right?
That's crazy. That's just crazy.
Yeah. So how are you guys been doing? I haven't seen you in a while.
This is true. We've been doing good. We've been promoting the new business down in Springfield. We've been working with apothecary students, teaching the herbal mastery courses that we have, and exploring things like social media, and we're getting ready for our radio show again. We've got some episodes lined up for that, with your help, of course. So things are good. Things are moving.
Good. I just saw, well, I didn't saw, I mean, I've noticed here recently that you have a new ministry that's come on board with the Nemenhah. It's affiliated with the Nemenhah, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we've created a public services, a healing services branch of the University of Nemenhah.
Okay.
And
very good.
And that's what the Spirit Wind Healing Ministries is. Yep.
Okay. Well, the reason I brought both of you onto the show is because I trust your opinion. I trust what you tell or what you're going to share with everybody here. You've studied, you've worked, and, whenever I've had issues with myself, you've been able to, lead me in the right direction. But, I wanted to talk about food as being medicine. And for some people, I don't think people understand what I mean when I say that. And that's why I wanted you as doctors to come on here and explain and talk a little bit why food is medicine and why, and the things that it can do for you in a good way and the things it can do in a bad way. And that's kind of where I want to go with this topic. So if you guys want to go along and then want to jump in, and let's get started. Food is medicine.
All right. My context is one from, that comes from years and years and years of laboratory and clinical experience, and working with companies. And the thing that really bugs me about working with supplement companies is they don't see food as medicine. They see food as a commerce product, and they'll put a supplement together that has this item and this ingredient and that constituent, and each one is backed by its own little research paper and findings, and they grind it all up in a powder, put it in a pill, and you swallow it, and that's medicine. But as an earth healer as well as a permaculturist, I've been up to your place and we've worked permaculture, and it was a lot of fun. But one of the key issues that we try and get people to look at first and foremost as we're teaching the principles of permaculture and healing the earth and soil and air and water is we try and get people to, find a wild place and go and sit down and observe it. And what you observe in a wild place, when you observe nature where it is not being interfered with, you see how things ought to, or closer to the way that a local environment ought to be functioning. And so it makes sense then to come back home and say, okay, if I want to understand how to affect a condition that I might have, how does the body utilize its resources, the resources available in a normal setting? just like if we were sitting out in the woods and observing nature, and we want to decide to put a little corner that's wild in our backyard and use native things and attract some of the native wildlife to our yard and get a better Mother Earth feel in our backyard. Well, the best thing to do would be to go see what grows best in the wild, how it grows, and then imitate that a little bit in the corner of the backyard, right? So, in gardening, that just makes sense. Nobody's going to argue with us about that. Unless, it doesn't fit your tractor and you can't make a row out of it, and you're not, your big sprayer is going to spray your neighbor in the face. Okay, we get off the track. But to observe nature is to observe how things ought to be naturally occurring. And so the best possible thing to do is to study the human body and how it normally uses its resources. And, if any time that you spend some time, a moment of contemplation looking at what's going on when you're well, it's very illuminating with regard to what to do when you're sick. And so this is where food as medicine comes in, because if we use the right foods, if you go out in the wild and you sit on a stump and you observe, you're going to, after a while, start having the animals and the insects and all the whole area really settles into you, and you get to observe things as they would normally be going on if you weren't there. But I'll tell you what, if you go out there with a boombox and you turn that volume up and you sit there on that stump, you're not going to learn much about the environment and the fauna and the natural inhabitants of the place. So it makes good sense to take a look at food as it is used by the body that is well as the best teacher for us of how to use foods when we're sick. And that's the context that I come from. Even when we compound supplements, now we as a healing ministry, we don't do things the way most of the people in our profession, even those that are ministers in our profession, do it. We don't default right to manufacturers. We take a look at first what we can make ourselves and individualize, what we call compound for the individual, understanding all that we can about the individual. And it is amazing, Iggy, when we sit down for an hour and talk to a person, more often than not, it is food that is the medicine. It naturally evolves in the conversation. We find out what they're not doing, the kinds of things that they're not eating, or the kinds of things that are eating that are actually bringing about the disease. Well, if what you're eating is bringing the disease, it then makes sense to change that. To turn the boombox down and sit there on the stump and allow nature to reach an equilibrium, bring in the right resources, and food actually does correct a lot of problems. That's my context.
Yeah.
How about you? Likewise.
I'm just going to totally agree.
You guys, if you sit long enough on the stump, you become food too, so don't forget that.
Well, yeah.
Well, it depends on how wild you get, right? I love to compost. When I go, it's in my will. I'm gonna have them put me in a compost pile.
There you go.
Nah, they'll never do that.
Break down.
I'll break down.
Yeah.
I'll become food, and then I'll be medicine for something.
It's true. I do agree with you, Chief, that our food is a key to our survival. How we eat, what we ingest, what we're taking into our body, and it manifests outwardly too. It shows on us if we're actually doing it, and if we're exercising and all. That's not even adding exercising, but just eating generally the right things. But how do we eat in this world that with so much processed food and so much manufactured food and things that have been altered and changed? I know some people have a big hang up about GMOs. I don't know if GMOs is good or bad. I know that you have told me in the past that I should get to know my my farmer. Get to know the people who grow things. What do you think? What do you say to that?
Well, I agree with myself. That's what I say. I always agree with myself. I'm the smartest guy I know. But
all right. You have competition.
All right, he says.
Okay. Human beings have taken a long time to find out what is good for food.
Yeah.
I mean, we have taken this huge evolutionary path and we have a very diverse diet that is useful to us. We are opportunistic omnivores. We're not vegetarian. We're not grandivorous. We're not all grain, like birds.
Yeah.
A lot of birds. We're not carnivorous either.
Mm-hmm.
We are opportunistic in our dietary needs and intelligent enough to really check out over our evolutionary history what is good for food. It's a very, very short period in our evolutionary period where we have started doing this over-processing, overthinking, over-science-fying. Is that a word? Science-ifying?
It is now.
Technologifying.
Sign trickery.
Trying, yeah. We over everything, and when you have taken a food that we have proven through our evolutionary history is good nutrition for us, and we over process that food, we turn it into no longer being food. Let's take a simple one. I love pomegranate. You like pomegranate juice, Iggy? Do you like it?
At times it's kind of sour.
It's tart.
But I do.
It's one of those.
Yeah, it's tart.
It is. It's one of those tart fruits. Well, it's one of those fruits that mankind through its history has learned is very specifically not. It's not just good for sweet and sour. It's not just good for flavoring things, and it's wonderful color. You can put color into things with pomegranate that were just bland before, but mankind has learned that this specific fruit is really a good remedy or a good treatment for gout and rheumatoid arthritis and pain in the muscles and the joints specifically. Well, when you take pomegranate juice, you're doing pretty good. Well, that's really how you have to do it. You kind of have to juice it because you've got that seed in there. But you take that juice and you freeze dry it, and you make a powder out of it, and then you put it in a pill with a bunch of other powdered junk, with a bunch of fillers, and you put it in that glue packet. We call it a capsule, a gelatin capsule. You now really no longer have the food. It's really interesting because, pomegranate has a number of really good health benefits. I'm just going to go ahead and quote some of them. The pomegranate juice has antiviral properties. It's really high in antioxidants. There's vitamin C content, so really over the roof. There are fatty acids and proteins in pomegranates that help protect against stroke, heart disease, diabetes, lowers blood pressure, and prostate health. Pomegranates have been used in the Mediterranean for a long, long time in men's health. One of the things a pomegranate does, it in connection with something like strawberries or plantain or something like that, it actually dissolves uric acid crystals that form up in the joints that cause gout. Well, there was who knows how many tens of thousands of years of trial and error that it has taken for mankind to learn that thing. And now, knowing that wonderful thing, we take pomegranate, we absolutely ruin it, and we turn it into nothing but a sugar powder. It's like, we're crystallizing everything. It's it's crystal pomegranate meth, and it's bath salts. It's not anything anymore. It doesn't do any of those things that I just read from Dr. Shively's book. It's just over-processed garbage. And when you look at the standard American diet, the SAD diet, and we do this. We sit for an hour with people who come into our for sometimes an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours with people who come into our office.
We did that recently.
Yep, and we find out that they're sick, that they're in pain, things are going wrong, and when you look at their diet, the predominance of their diet is processed food. They're not eating food that human beings figured out over the course of their evolutionary history is good for them. And we have a standing rule with all of our supplicants that come into our ministry, and that is that they have to learn and memorize this. The food rule is this. And it's been said many ways by many people, but eat what is really food, not what some manufacturer or some advertiser tells you to eat. Know the thing is food before you eat it. And then the other part of the rule is make sure that it's mostly plant. Your diet, we are opportunistic omnivores. We can and do eat animal matter, insect matter, fish, and that kind of thing. But make sure that the predominance of your diet is not that, because we're not made for that. Make sure that the predominance of your diet is real plant food.
Yeah.
And then third, and this is the one that's hard for me. Oh, it's so hard for me because I love to eat. I just love not only the taste of food when it's done well, but how it feels when I eat it, except, after an hour or so when I'm all bloated. But don't eat too much. Real food, mostly plant, not too much. I think that's Stephen Pollock's rule, isn't it?
Michael Pollock.
Michael Pollock, not Stephen Pollock.
Pollen. Yep.
I get his name wrong every time. One of these days I'm going to get it right and properly cite the guy, and I'll probably get a letter.
Probably.
Real food. How do you know if something is real food? Well, you kind of have to find out. Most of our population don't even know what real food is, and that takes a little bit of study. That takes a little effort on your part. If you're accustomed to eating Jell-O, strawberry Jell-O and bananas, why does the flavor of strawberry appeal to the human organism? Because it does. You can smell a strawberry, you can taste artificial strawberry, and it literally changes the way you think. The reason is we have taken the time over our evolutionary history to, by trial and error, find out that strawberry is not only pleasant to eat, but it does very positive things to our organism, the whole of our organism. And so even when we experience a processed form of that food, we are attracted to it physically and emotionally and spiritually. It calls to us. It pays to find out why that is. Ignacio, what's your favorite vegetable?
My favorite vegetable, broccoli.
Yeah, your favorite vegetable. Let's look it up.
I love broccoli. I mean, I love vegetables, but broccoli is like one of those. Everybody else seems to hate it, but I seem to like it for some reason. Corn.
Well, broccoli is just nasty. Broccoli.
You're nasty.
Broccoli.
Yeah, you're nasty.
I know. One of the best things about broccoli is its sulfur content. The broccoli has a high sulfur content. It's one of the cabbage group, and human beings have found that eating sulfur is one of the best ways to keep themselves clean of toxins, natural toxins that occur in the environment. Now, you go to South America, for example, and there are birds there are a lot of animals that have to eat toxic materials all the time. You look at the fruits and the nuts and everything up in the canopy that are available that they are eating, you'll find that probably half of the parrots' family's food that they eat is actually highly toxic stuff. So what they'll do is they'll go to certain rivers that have exposed clay banks. What's interesting about the clay banks in most of South America is there's very high in sulfur in that clay, and they will eat the clay. And that clay that they eat denatures the toxins and makes the high alkaloid count, the toxicity of their food, then safe for them. Elephants in Africa do the same thing. A lot of the leaves that they eat are actually, as it builds up, they're very toxic. So they'll go find mud pits, and they'll stick their trunks way down in the water, down in the mud, and they'll blow air until they get deep into the clay, and then they'll bring that clay up and they'll eat it, and it's high in sulfur content, and it denatures toxicity. And the clay absorbs the toxicity and then carries it out of the body. One of the reasons that we're drawn to the brassica group, especially those of us who have European background, is because of its high sulfur content. It was literally eaten in the winter time for the most part, because the winter frost, or the first fall frosts, actually sweetened the vegetable, made it sweeter and tastier. We started eating it, and then during the winter, when you have to be eating foods that are put up, you tend to have a higher processed food quotient, and it assists the body in removing toxicity little by little, very small incremental amounts. So broccoli is a cleansing. It's a real happy, healing plant. Now, you probably didn't know that. That's probably not the reason that you like broccoli. What do you think the reason that you like broccoli is?
Well, if I had to guess, and I'm just guessing here, I think our body has a way to energetically somehow match the frequency with the foods that we eat. And I think also it's something that's instilled in us, like the broccoli. For some reason, I'm attracted to broccoli, and there's something in my body that's lacking and it's needing. And at a higher level, I think my body just understands that it needs that. I know, like when I like cabbage too, so I like kimchi and stuff like that. I like cilantro. Cilantro's huge in clearing.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, you're now naming a bunch of foods that have one really interesting thing in common: the amount of sulfur that's in them. Broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, cilantro, onions. You like onions?
Not raw, but sauteed a little
Well,
bit.
I know you do, because you make a ceviche, and you make an amazing ceviche. And how much onion is in ceviche?
Yeah, there's onions. Yeah, you eat it with. It tastes better with it. The fish and the onions working together.
Oh, come on! There's oodles of onions in there. Yeah, there's an onion or two in there.
So modest.
Onions, garlic, chives, leeks.
Mm-hmm.
These are some of the things, and all of the brassicas, all of the cabbage group, Brussels sprouts, and all of them are high in sulfur.
So what are you saying that my body am I lacking some kind of sulfur content in my system?
No, what I'm telling you, what I'm discerning is that I know that you're taking in a raft of other toxins. Your body knows that you, because of other behaviors, you take in a raft of other toxins.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, in sitting back in the forest on the stump, what can we observe about our diet here? If our body energetically is telling us, okay, I'm going to cause you to like this particular food because I know, even if you don't, that you need to get some crap out of your system that you're not getting out, and sulfur will help you do that. Now the idea as a healer, using food as medicine, is to sit back and say, so what about the rest of my diet might be like the elephants or like the parrot? What about the rest of my diet might be unnecessarily full of toxins that are building up in my body? Because that is what your body is telling you to do. It may not even be, that your body is energetically attracting you for any other reason, but that there's energetics that are bad going on from the toxicity and the chemical toxicity that's building up in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
interesting.
My name's Phil, and and I heard you mention tequila earlier. And
oh yeah. Hey, that's essential. That's plant medicine.
That's plant medicine, all right. Especially with that bug in the bottom of the bottle.
Let me put my other shades on real quick. There we go.
As it happens, that some of the, as the alcohol is turned into glucose and carbon-rich wastes, the sulfur is very useful in removing a lot of the waste that comes from high carbohydrate consumption.
That's me.
That's you, high carbohydrate consumption. Because the next vegetable you went on. Yep. Well, the next vegetable you went on to mention isn't even a vegetable. It was corn. Corn.
Oh, yeah, that's a grass.
Corn is a grain. I don't even consider it a vegetable. I grow it for my chickens.
It's actually grass. It's a grass, right? The Incas actually genetically modified corn. Yeah, it's a grain.
Yeah. It's grain.
Yeah. Bred it until it got big. Then they made it real big. Those damn Incas.
So there it is.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me about corn. Tell me about corn, because I know you're dying to tell me.
Well, we get into GMO.
I had some
You had some today. We've got we got a new minister who's, well, he's a man he's a veterinarian who wants to become a Nemenhah minister. He has several ranches where he grows organic feed for cattle, pigs, chickens, and one of his favorites is he grows blue corn, organic blue corn. He was telling me on the telephone the difference between blue corn and yellow corn, the kind of corn we eat, corn on the cob corn. As far as he's concerned, being somebody who's gone back and retrieved an ancient type of corn to grow in Nebraska to feed, he wants feedlot operators to use organic feeds. Whether he's ever going to be successful at that remains to be seen. But the blue corn, not only in flavor, but in its content of nutrient and the way the nutrient is presented to the body, is not even in the same sphere as the corn that has been genetically engineered and modified to be, attractive to the American public today. When you eat corn on the cob, what is it that you're after? You're after that kernel that pops and it's sweet and
buttery,
juicy,
and salty.
butter. You don't even have to put butter and salt on it anymore because it's engineered to be buttery and salty. When you used to eat here's corn on the cob. In the old days, you would grow a cob of corn and you would dry it in bins. Farmers would put them in these big airing bins, and it would be totally dry, and they would keep in the crib all winter long. And when you needed it, you brought it out and you steamed it. You either soaked it in water to get it soft again, and then you cooked it, and you had your corn on your cob, or you steamed it slowly for a long time, and you'd eat this corn on the cob, and it was what we would call tough. Today, we would not be satisfied with that corn on the cob because it'd be tough to eat. But the flavor of it is nothing like what our corn tastes like today. In fact, he was assuring me, he's sending me some of this corn, by the way, to grow. But he was assuring me that I would not even call it corn. I would not believe what corn really tastes like, and really how good corn is, as opposed to what we now believe is corn. It doesn't even taste the same. He said when you take his black corn or his blue corn and you make a tortilla out of it, you can't believe what you're eating. It will simply make your eyebrows go up and a big smile come on your face because it does not taste like a tortilla at all. It tastes like corn used to taste. And some of the things about the taste of food depend upon the minerals and the chemical constituents of the food itself is what the taste depends upon. So you have chefs, these really expensive chefs around the world now. The biggest fad right now is to go back to ancient food, to find ancient sources, and it's all organic. And one of the mostest famousest chef, with the bestest food and the highest price, is now going out along the seashore and gathering weeds every day to feed to his customers, who will pay anywhere from $300 to $500 American dollars for a plate of weeds. And the reason is that he's reacquainting them over time with the way food actually tastes. Now, knowing the chemistry of food is very, very helpful. We do this with herbs all the time. Our herbs that we use in medicine, when we teach an apothecary, compounding apothecary, to tincture an herb or to decoct or infuse an herb or any way that we extract the herbs, we insist that they taste them.
Always the taste test. If it doesn't taste right, it doesn't go to the supplicant.
Well, and besides that, we want our apothecaries to learn the taste, to get accustomed and acquainted to the way the minerals, the chemicals in the plants, the alkaloids, the acids, how they taste, so that they'll be eating a meal and they'll notice that taste, and it'll pique their recall, and they'll know instinctively or energetically or however you want to lay it, that they're getting that particular set of nutrients. And that's plant medicine. That's food medicine at its best, when a person's experimented enough with the actual flavor of food to be able to recognize what nutrients they're getting or what nutrients they're not getting by what flavors they're not tasting.
And be able to eat a meal, a home-cooked meal, and recognize the kind of nutrition you're getting by the taste and by the reaction in your body.
Reaction of the body, yeah. Because when you taste something and your body says, wow, that's a chemical reaction. That's a reaction to certain chemistry. You don't necessarily like pomegranate all that much because it's really sour. It's pretty strong stuff. How much sour do you eat?
No, I do like sour though, but pomegranate costs so much too.
It's expensive. It's expensive. You feed us ceviche, and it's some of the goodest food I've ever eaten, and it's very sour.
Oh yeah.
Well, and it's meat.
It's
tangy. Okay, well, it means the same thing. Right? Sour, tangy, tart.
Here's the story of ceviche. Ceviche was actually brought from the Spanish when they were coming on their ships. In order to combat scurvy, they would actually use the lemons and limes. And then what they would do is they would make ceviche on the ships. And then that's kind of how ceviche ended up in Peru. Even though Peruvians were already doing a type of ceviche, then they kind of fused together, because there's histories and all, different people when they come into conquest and stuff, they bring their ideas and their ways, and then other people improve it and make it better. So that's how ceviche came about. Ceviche came about that way.
Human beings are really, really good at trying out new tastes. What is important about the ceviche that you just described is, however, that it was very useful on shipboard because it can be prepared and then it can be kept through the course of the entire journey. They actually fermented meat. Now, when we make ceviche now, we use vinegar
just to pickle it a little bit.
To pickle, it makes a pickle. But the best ceviche has actually fermented. And a lot of people can't eat that kind of ceviche because it is strong, but it has so much more of every element of the ceviche. The nutritional value of the fish or the chicken in the ceviche increases by 100-fold when you ferment it. And that's why it was useful on shipboard.
Absolutely.
Today, when you swallow a vitamin C capsule today, a pill of vitamin C, big horse pill of vitamin C, where does that vitamin C come from?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I couldn't even tell you right off the bat.
You just did. You told us right off the bat by telling us the story of how ceviche came to Peru.
Oh, okay.
All of our ascorbic acid today is made from big vats of fermenting bacteria, which is exactly how they made their ceviche on shipboard. And that's exactly why it wasn't necessarily the limes or the lemons, because, citric acid is not that great when it comes to scurvy. But I'll tell you what, ascorbic acid is. And they made huge amounts of ascorbic acid with those lemons, limes, and fish on shipboard by fermenting. Huge amounts of ascorbic acid were produced, and that is really what helped them with scurvy.
Yeah. Interesting.
And that's actually how
food.
Go ahead.
I'm saying food is interesting. It's amazing how we have such a relationship with food that, what we eat can just change our mood or change our attitudes. And, just that's why I wanted to talk about this topic about food being our medicine, because we wake up, we eat. We go to sleep, we wake up, we eat. It's ingrained in us. We fast, but without food, we don't survive. So that's why I thought it was important for you two to come on and share this message, because it's totally super important for other people to understand that, our relationship with the foods that we eat is probably why we are the way we are to some degree, and, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And, foods are, you see a lot of cultures that are really, food is part of what they do.
Yeah. You know what? Food is always good food, and food that brings health, I've noticed, is always an indicator of fine culture. It's interesting. I've learned about over the past 5 years or so about this thing called Netflix. It's an amazing thing.
Yep.
This Netflix thing. You can learn so much.
That old.
Well, come on. You can learn so much by this amazing thing called Netflix. And I've been following the foodie channels, you know, and they take you to foreign places. These really famous chefs, you know, they're fantastic. They've come up through fine traditional European cuisine, and they get all their stars and everything. And then the first thing they do is they get a contract for a documentary. What do? They hit the streets and they go documentary the street food. And when you look at street food around the world where there's a healing culture in food, you will find that their street food, the food that the people are eating, is not like the food that Americans eat.
No.
We do not eat street food. Street food obviously is not safe. We have a government agency that makes sure that the food that we eat is safe. It's properly packaged, it's properly distributed, it's properly paid for, it's properly taxed, and then you are insured well for your medical complaints that you will have, because we have an agency that makes sure that our food is safe. We don't have street food. We don't have a food culture. And you look at our culture in America, and I hate to say it, we have a lot of neat things, but the neatest things about our cultures are what we have actually brought from other cultures.
Yeah.
We are this melting pot thing, and we don't have a very sophisticated food culture. Our food really boils down to corn, wheat, and soy. The vast majority of everything we eat, even the meat that we eat, was fed corn, wheat, and soy.
Yeah.
Everything, all our food additives, most of our food additives you will find, you know, are either petroleum-based or they are corn, wheat, and soy. You literally can, when we look at the genetics, the DNA now, or we look at the genetic coding now, you can actually find out where a person spent most of their life by tracing their DNA. And, you know, we in America, we really are corn-fed Americans, because we have so much corn in everything that not one of us can get away from the fact that our DNA, our GMO in us, is largely corn. We're made of corn. And so our food culture is one that is not diverse. And anytime you have a complex system or a simple system, that simple system demands a huge amount of energy. Complex systems are systems, and when they're sustainable, are systems that have many, many elements, and all of those elements of the system contribute the energy that goes into the system. So it's divided. It's well balanced. There's lots and lots of things going on, lots of participants benefiting. But in a simple system, such as wheat, corn, and soy, you have huge amounts of physical and emotional and spiritual energy expended for a very, very narrow, small food culture. And that is a simple system. Simple systems collapse. Where it collapses, it obviously, we know this, it's abundantly proven, where this type of simple system, food system, collapses is in our bodies. A simple, non-diverse diet that is uninteresting causes disease. A complex and sustainable system that has a plethora of flavors and forms and origins, this is a well-developed food culture. And those cultures, when you travel around the world and you look at those food cultures, you will find that they are taking the majority of their medicine in their meals. And they don't have the illness that we have. It is only when they adopt the modern, sophisticated diet that they begin to have the modern, sophisticated diseases. And that should be very instructive to us as we're looking at food as our medicines. We really need to look at our food. We need to look at our food.
That's us sitting on the stump in the forest observing nature around us.
Again, it's permaculture. We really can solve all of the world's social problems from our gardens, can't we?
I believe.
So now I digress, didn't I? It's gardening season.
And I just nod. I haven't gardened at all this year. I've been wrapped up in so many different things. But you've been spending most of your time out in the garden.
All my spare time this time of year.
And it's looking good, too.
Because you want to get as much in before the chicks wake up as you can. The chicks and the chiggers come out, and it just spoils the day. No, but you're right, Ignacio. Food and mood. Oh, my gosh, you don't want to be around me when I haven't eaten very much. And when we come to visit you, what are the two things that we require? A place to sleep and food.
Food.
Those are absolute requirements, right?
That's just because we want you to like us.
All right. You want Ignacio's cooking.
We want your food.
Not just any food.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back, okay? We'll be right back.
All right.
You are listening to WithInsightsRadio.com, your free online resource for achieving self-discovery and inspiration. With Insights Radio is a listener-supported radio station, and your donations are greatly appreciated. We cover a variety of topics, interviews surrounding the metaphysical and holistic and natural medicine, alternative healing modalities, and much more. Thank you for tuning in to WithInsightsRadio.com. You are listening to WithInsightsRadio.com on the Blog Talk Radio Network, your free online holistic publication resource radio for trusting your intuition, achieving self-discovery, and following your soul self. You are listening to Iggy Garcia Live, episode 44, Food as Medicine, with both Dr. Landises are with me today, which is awesome to have both of them on the show. We're talking about how the foods we eat affect our body, affect our spirit, affect our emotions, and all the above and all the below. You know, there was a time when I first met Chief Plowpowder. He told me a story about how, and he'll probably have to correct me a little bit, but this story is about how governments and how we dispose of petroleum-based products, and we can't just dump it into the creeks and the rivers and stuff. I'll let him explain that to you a little bit because I find it very fascinating when he says it versus to how I say it. So, Chief, tell us how we get rid of petroleum-based products in this country and others.
Well, it caught my attention way back in the 70s and the 80s when I listened to, in high school you have government class, American government, and I was kind of ahead. I had already taken that.
Now.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
It was required, American government, U.S. history and government.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was ahead, and so I took, and the school that I went to was a little weird. It had a lot of, elective classes that were strange. One of the classes that I took was called Social Protest. And it was an English course and a government course all at once. And so one of the things we had to do was we had to write reports that were based in protest, And I got to listen to a kid who did a study on how fluoride, not fluorine, but fluoride, or one or the other, the fluorine in toothpaste is made. And at that time, one of the predominant sources of fluoride that went into toothpaste and mouthwashes and was added to water came from the manufacture of photography film. You put the film in your camera, you take your pictures, you have it developed, and much of the chemistry involved in the developing of film puts off a waste product that can't really be. I mean, they make these products to develop film, and then they end up with in the process of making the products, they end up with mountains of this material that is toxic, that's high in fluorine.
Sure, we're not talking about sodium metabisulfate.
And this is fluorine specifically. And I was amazed because he was telling us how many millions of metric tons of this stuff was laying around in mountains, and they couldn't figure out what to do with it. And then came fluoridation. And they decided, these dentists or whoever it was that decided that your teeth would be stronger and you would avoid cavities if you used more fluoride. And so they started putting it into toothpaste and dentifrices and then started putting it into water. Well, what it boiled down to was they needed a way to legally get rid of this huge amount of toxic waste. The EPA would not allow them to just go ahead and dump it. So what they did was they dumped it into the American public. Now, the American public can legally dump it into a toilet, but the manufacturers couldn't legally bury it anywhere. So since they couldn't get rid of it in any way, they put it into the American people. The largest repository of toxic waste in the nation is people, because we can just dump anything into our sewer systems and into our septic systems right back into the earth. It's not regulated at all. And so industry found an amazing way to get rid of huge amounts of toxic waste simply by making them into food additives. And so when you read you remember the first rule was real food? One of the only ways you can know a thing is real food is to actually read the label. If you read the label and you run into words that are so long, number one, that you can't pronounce it, and you don't know what language it is, so you can't pronounce it, and you run out of breath before you can get to the end of the word, and more importantly, if you have no idea what that is doing in the recipe, if you can't teach grandma why that's in the recipe and why she needs to put it in her recipe for the same product, these are things that should not be in food, because largely they are waste byproducts of industry disguised, changed a little bit into a food additive because it makes bubbles, or it makes things slick on the tongue, or keeps things from falling out of suspension. Okay, they do this in the chemistry set as well. They do this in the the metalworks and in industry and making tires and that kind of thing. But when we end up with chemistry that we know cannot possibly be food, we cannot explain it as food, but it's half the label, half the ingredients on the label, that those things are an industry dumping their wastes into the human repository, because the human repository can just send it on down to the sea without any licensure, without any permits, without any tariffs. It just goes into the soil, and then that goes to the aquifers, comes out in the rivers, down the streams, into the ocean, and kills everything. Well, okay, that's oversimplified, right? But it saves industry a huge amount of money to dump this into people.
So give me some examples that maybe our listeners can relate to when they turn their can of corn around or whatever label they read. Do you have any?
Oh, lots.
Oh, yeah, there are tons. You could spend an hour just going over the individual items. But the most predominant food additives that you can find are any of your cellulose derivatives.
Oh, yeah.
People like to say, that's just plant matter, that's plant fiber. No, cellulose comes from pulp paper manufacturing. It is a chemical byproduct, a cellulose-rich chemical byproduct. It has no business in the body. It binds to the mucosal lining of the intestines, and your body's immune system has to attack it and cause it to slough off and be removed from the body. Cellulose-based food additives, bad.
And one of the others is also aluminum-based food additives.
Oh, yeah,
You'll find in bread products and pasta products a lot of aluminum-based byproducts. And this comes from the manufacture of things like sheetrock and paint.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of a lot of these waste products. You have to find a way to use them in commerce and make lots of money. If it's illegal to put in the soil, the best possible thing for the industry producing it is to find a way to make a food additive out of it, because there's really no regulation about where to dump that stuff. It just goes into our effluent waste systems in the cities and into septic systems out in the country.
The other, another one that comes to mind, most of your food additive phosphates or pyrophosphates or your biphosphates, most of the phosphates that are standalone on a food label are in industrial chemicals, because they don't occur isolated in that form in nature.
No, and certainly not in food.
Right. Yeah, if they're standalone on the ingredient, it means it's been added. Any additive that has that phosphate in it. Not saying necessarily that phosphates are bad. That's extreme. Mm-hmm. What we're looking for is real food. If it's its own item on the label, it came from somewhere else. Right. It was added to the food.
Yeah, they're not taking corn. They're saying yellow milled corn. Everything that's in that corn is not listed.
Right.
You'd have a label. You wouldn't have enough real estate to list all the chemistry that's naturally in that GMO corn. Oh, I said that in that corn. It's naturally in corn. But when it's listed on a label, it's because it was added there. And here's the catch. Hexametaphosphate.
Hexametaphosphate. It's got 5 or 6 variations.
Yeah, hexametaphosphate. What in the world is hexametaphosphate doing in my cornflakes?
Sodium hexametaphosphate, sodium biphosphate,
triphosphate, hexameta.
It took me a long time to figure out what these were, actually.
Hey, what does hexameta mean?
Way more than we should.
Way more than we should. That's right. Hexameta literally means we got way too much of this stuff and you need to be eating it. Right?
No.
Hexameta.
It sounds like a heavy metal.
Yeah, it's a scam. It's a transformer. More than meets the eye. That's what it is.
Now, the hexametaphosphates were actually developed. They were first discovered and developed during the process of research into photographic development.
Yeah, you learned that because you worked for a company that the side company was
chemicals
actually making.
Were what they were selling.
Yeah, what they were selling. So you had to you learned what that. Oh, I've seen that in my pudding. Yeah, what is that doing in my pudding?
It's actually meant to keep relatively heavy solute particles in suspension.
Oh,
that's what it's there for.
Smoother up.
Which allows for, in photo industry, there's a high silver and a high nitrate content to all that chemistry that can't stay on the paper. And so what happens is you have the silver and the nitrates coming off the paper that have to stay in the solution. Otherwise, you end up with caking, and the colors come out bad, and the acids are all wrong. And so the hexametaphosphates of the 5 or 6 different variations they use help keep all that silver and all that nitrate and nitrite suspended in the solution. This is the photo-developing liquids.
Yeah, so in my hamburger helper, what would it be doing in my hamburger helper?
Well, they use it mostly in liquids.
Right, in my hamburger helper.
No, liquid.
When I add my water to my hamburger helper, it makes a liquid, and it keeps things from settling out. It keeps the fat from coming up to the surface.
Yeah.
Because hamburger helper has got that hamburger in there, and if you just were to make that recipe with regular stuff, you'd have a layer of fat all over the top. So, for a long, long time, you'd find sodium hexametaphosphate in hamburger helper in the powder that you add the water to. The reason for that was to keep the fat coming out of the hamburger from floating on top because it was unsightly. Well, aside from being unsightly, what did you say it does? Well, the cellulose, but what hexametaphosphate does a lot the same thing in the intestine.
Yeah, it keeps things in suspension.
It keeps things in suspension, such as the mucus that needs to remain on the inside surface of the intestines. Hexametaphosphates, all of the phosphate group, releases or removes, literally strips the mucosa away from the intestine. And that allows bacteria, the normal natural bacteria that's going on in fermentation in your gut, to attack the tissue of the intestines and cause inflammation.
The normally thick mucilaginous layer actually becomes dispersed and distributed into the chyme.
Right.
Suspended in the chyme because of the hexametaphosphate.
By the way, chyme is poo.
Exactly.
The poo moving through. The poo moving through you is chyme. Okay. So just wanted to make sure you got that. The biggest thing right now among the medical industry, and of course it's being parroted by naturopaths and herbalists and the phony baloney certified natural health coach sort of people out there, is inflammation. Inflammation this and inflammation that. In reality, the food that you eat can be highly inflammatory, or it can be highly anti-inflammatory. One of the ways to return the mucosal lining that we like is the use of slippery elm. The slippery elm can be hard to get. If you can't get slippery elm, or it gets too expensive, or one of the foods, we're speaking of food as medicine, one of the foods that helps to restore the intestinal lining, oddly, is hazelnut. Hazelnut is medicinal food. Not only is it got a good protein, it's good nutrition, but it's anti-inflammatory. It prevents the tissue. It doesn't prevent the tissue, but it reduces the reactivity of the tissue in the intestines. And because it's the nature of the thing is slightly mucilaginous, it helps to build that mucosal lining. It thickens the lining.
It actually becomes part of the mucosal matrix. Yeah, and here's an interesting thing about it. It also lowers your cholesterol, which helps to protect your heart. So here we have multiple aspects of a food. From a really simple food, actually. It's a very simple food. Now, one of the reasons that hazelnut is not used more predominantly is because of nut allergies, but all across the world now, we're finding that medical doctors are turning to actually using the allergen to recondition the sufferer's body to be not allergic to it anymore. Folks come in to our office who are seeming to be developing food allergies, and they're allergic to everything, and I mean dangerously allergic to everything. It is because the food that they're eating is all toxic. So what's actually happening is that their body is interpreting food, all food, as inflammatory, and is reacting to all food. Some things it reacts a lot worse to. I mean, some of the worst peanut allergies right now are being cured by none other than small amounts of peanuts. A carefully regulated but consistent introduction of peanuts into the diet. So, the consumption of hazelnuts really dropped off, the filbert, the hazelnut, in the 70s and the 80s because of nut allergy. But if people knew how anti-inflammatory, how medicinal this food is, they would probably eat a great deal more of it. I lost my spot. Well, some of the other additives that come to mind that are really frequent in food is, one of them comes to mind, is silica. Oh, yeah. You find a lot of silica in food products, mostly just because of what it does to the texture of food. This is bad. It's not good. This is industrial sand, okay? It's ground glass. It's silica. It's not plant matter. And if it is plant matter, it doesn't matter, because in that form, it's not digestible anyway. Yeah. And the other one is magnesium stearate. Magnesium stearate is used to make things bind better. That's glue. Yeah, it's a glue. It's used in capsules. It's also used in certain foods to help it have a thicker consistency without using a gelling agent like pectin or a hypromolose or some other food thickener. You can use magnesium stearate, and it's a starchy glue. And you can use a little bit, and it goes a long way. Again, your body doesn't know what to do with magnesium stearate. It's stearic acid of magnesium. Yeah. Which in any other form would be soap. It would be soap. It's actually a main ingredient in some good traditional soaps. Yeah. Stearic acid of magnesium, stearic acid of sodium, stearic acid of potassium. Some of these have stearic acid processes with potash and lots of different minerals, added with lye.
Make soap
and milk. and
or pig fat or
exactly,
something like that.
Some fat, and you have soap. Your body does the same thing with stearic acids of many different kinds. Magnesium stearate in the body becomes soap. Don't eat it. It's not necessary. That's why we say real food. If magnesium stearate is in the food item, they have altered the recipe so drastically, or they're using materials that are not real food to the degree they have to add something to make it look and feel like the food it's supposed to be. That's where food additives come in. It's to mimic the food that it's supposed to be.
Right. Because we have this long, historic, evolutionary path where we have ingrained, memorized DNA memory of what food is supposed to be. And so your manufacturers spend most of their science on how to mimic what food is rather than any science at all engaged in delivering food.
Right. Yeah.
You know, what does the body want? What do you want? What is food? Just, please at some point give me food. That's all I ask. I don't ask for much. I just at some point I want it to be food.
So those are a few
Let me ask you guys a
additives that
question.
came to mind.
Sure. Let me ask you a question. Where can people find you? Where would you like people to be directed to?
In your garden.
In your garden.
That's,
but I mean, you.
Yep. Yeah, that is the
spirit.
that is the answer to all questions.
Yeah. Spirit, wind.
Oh,
Professionally, where would you like?
You will find me in my garden. You may not find me in my office every day of the week, but you will always. If you look for me in my garden, you will find me. Yeah.
Okay.
Jonathan has a phone number and an address and a website.
Yeah, the best way is the website is www.spiritwindnhm.org. And that has all our contact information. It's got our address, our phone number, email contacts. And we also have a Facebook page that we try to keep active on, and that's Spirit Wind NHM. Just Google that, and it'll come up.
And it will have pictures of me in my garden. Well, it should anyway.
It will.
Oh, come on.
Now that you've promised it.
Now that the garden is growing.
I know. It's looking good, too.
Oh, my gosh. It was depressing all winter long. Come March, all you want to do is get out in the garden. That is where to find food, by the way. One of the first things, I want to give this advice to anybody, anywhere in America, if you have any kind of gardening going on, your best, most healing food in the spring is going to be one of two, or one of three, and you'll see it anywhere. I don't care where you are in the country, you will see one at least, or all three of these foods. Number one is chickweed. Chickweed is the bane of all garden weeds. It comes up and it's green and it's succulent and it produces this massive roots that we hate because it chokes everything out. But it is number one, the best food for any of us in the spring after a long winter. 2, dandelion.
Yeah.
Everybody hates dandelions, but in the spring, you need to eat every part of the dandelion. And number 3, plantain. You will see plantain come up between, the sections of, on your sidewalk. You're stepping over the cracks, so you don't break your mother's back, but in the cracks grow the plantain. This is spring food, and nobody knows it. This is some of the best healing food there is, and if we're wise, we would remember that all 3 of these things came to America as garden vegetables, and then people stopped gardening, and they're just wild.
Absolutely. I remember you telling me that when you were sick, you just went out to the garden and just started eating everything you could possibly eat.
On my hands and knees. Yep. Like a cow. And I lived.
Good. I got a quick question for you guys.
What's that?
You have, here in the United States, we have a food pyramid, and I saw your post, and it says, this is right. The food pyramid is wrong. So I want you guys to talk. If you have time, I would like to see if you guys could talk a little bit about what your post is here. For those of you who are wondering what I'm looking at, I'm at the Facebook page for Spirit Wind and NHM. If you want to follow along with me, they have a picture here, a meme of sorts, talking about the food that it's being that it's incorrect. So take us on that journey.
It's not just incorrect, Iggy. It's a crock.
Absolutely. One of the first things that any of us really learn when we're exploring natural health or natural medicine in any form is that everything we thought we knew about diet was 100% the wrong direction.
Yeah, turn it upside down.
And it is literally. We do have to turn everything upside down in order to reestablish some kind of foundation when it comes to food. We find this in the office all the time. People come in, they think they have been eating okay, and they've been following the nutritional guidelines set by this agency that, or this guru on some website over here who's telling them they need to eat certain amounts of this vitamin and it will cure all these ails. And then we look at their diet and it's deficient in a raft of essential nutrients, but it's all according to the food pyramid.
Oh yeah, they're doing the food pyramid perfectly,
and
but they're not getting nutrient.
Yeah,
because they're following the food pyramid. I mean, the biggest item on the food pyramid is what?
Grains.
Grains
is the biggest.
So what they're telling us is the biggest item, the predominance of your diet should be corn or wheat or soy.
Carbohydrates.
High carbohydrates.
Carbohydrates.
Well, who's paying for that part of the food pyramid? Well, we know it's Cargill and it's Monsanto, right? Or Monsanto, sorry.
Yeah.
Which is now going to be Bayer. Bayer. Go figure. Bayer, the biggest nutraceutical company in the world, is now going to be the manufacturer of Roundup. And the biggest manufacturer of Roundup-ready GMO plants in the world is now one of the biggest pharmaceutical. Their interest is sick people.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they get interested in food?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So here's the creators of the food pyramid. That biggest thing in there is carbohydrates. Now, in reality, in a healing diet, the carbohydrates that you eat would be those that you know that it's wheat in that recipe because you ground that wheat.
Yeah.
That's how intimately you should know your carbohydrates. When you make your pasta, Ignacio, you shouldn't make pasta by opening a plastic bag and dumping the contents into a puddle of water. Right?
Too late.
Pasta's not that hard to make, right? We used to always make pasta from scratch. We don't anymore. It's not very convenient. But, when you're eating those carbohydrates, know them.
Yeah.
Buy them in a form that is as little processed as possible. And if you're using flour, use flour, but know your source. And don't use it as the predominance of your diet. I mean, I love pastry. I love bread. And you can tell it when you look at me. My biggest vice are these wonderful, sweet, yummy, unctuous bread. And, you bite it and it's soft and it turns to a little puddle of
it's
dough
it's
in your
pizza.
Mouth. And pizza.
No, it's pizza.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay.
Hey, you're picking on you.
Because then it's dairy.
Gosh.
So, the biggest part of your diet it really ought to be the live foods, the vegetables, that are minimally, vegetables and fruits and nuts, minimally processed. If they're processed, let you do most of the processing.
Yeah.
And then the other items in the diet are of, they're of much smaller degree. Certainly not out of the diet. We're not being dumb and knee-jerk and pendulum swing here. Yeah. We're not faddish.
And that's kind of where I was going to go next. One of the reasons for how we address the food pyramid or the dinner plate in our ministry, in the Nemenhah ministry, in Spirit Wind ministry, is that one of the first things people do when they start reconfiguring their diet is they get online and find all these posts about what not to eat.
Yeah, Google Scholar, Ma Google.
And the first things that pop up is the gluten-free diet, the yeast-free diet, the mucusless diet,
whatever that means,
and the lectin-free diet.
Oh, sure.
Those are the major four, and the problem is any single one of those cuts out a huge diversity of essential vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, and there's a significantly ignored feature about human digestion that very few people actually pay attention to. And it goes along with some of the deceptions about digestion that has been promulgated by nutraceutical companies for decades, and that is, where do enzymes come from?
We have a bag of enzymes that we're born with. Everybody knows this. And by about 35 years of age, you've run out of enzymes, and so you have to buy them from that company in Chicago that gets them from the guts of pigs or something. And, we don't make them anymore, right?
So you look at the food pyramid as it stands, you have the high concentration of carbohydrates, a little bit of dairy, a little bit of fruit, some veggies, just enough to say you're eating something green. It justifies having molars,
Yeah.
And then some meat. But the physiology of digestion directly contradicts that pyramid, because our body manufactures enzymes from plant matter and from fruits and vegetables and meat, and it's ironic that the grains are of the highest proportion. Grains require one of the most complex gathering of enzymes of many different kinds to process the chemistry in grains.
So what he's trying to say is you got to eat vegetables, fruits,
to
nuts,
digest
and meat
the grains
in order to digest those simple carbohydrates. You've got to have them. And if you're not getting them from a diversity of food, you should not be even looking at this food pyramid with this huge carbohydrate base.
So we have things popping up everywhere, like, gluten intolerance, where, as of like 70 to 80 years ago, there was no such thing except for the occasion where you had a celiac disease.
Yeah, it was a rare thing.
It was a rare thing, but now you've got 1 in 10 people, every 10 people,
oh my gosh,
is reacting to gluten of some kind.
Well, and evidence of that is that it's fad, and it's caused by the standard American diet is that you go read labels. I mean, they've got gluten-free on things that never, ever had gluten in the first place. I mean, you can buy gluten-free water, bottled water that says gluten-free, and people will take that seriously. And I read a label like that, and I just laugh. And it comes down to the fact that modern industry has created a diet for us that lacks the ability to produce the enzymes we need to digest.
The components should be there in the food we eat. The tools we need to digest the food should be in the food. A perfect example is, one example was, Iggy, when you introduced me to ceviche. I have never once eaten raw fish before that, and I never enjoyed fish, ever. For my entire life, I've never enjoyed seafood or fish in any way. And part of the reason is because I always feel gross when I eat fish or seafood for some odd reason. But it wasn't just fish. I was feeling that way with meat, chicken, red meats from pork and beef and that sort of thing, and it would make me feel gross. And in the case of red meats, I would get actually very uncomfortable. Bloated, and there'd be constipation and all that. But what I had to discover was I was eating it overcooked. And you introduced me to that concept with the ceviche, because that is cured. The ceviche is cured, so it wasn't raw.
It was cooked. It was just cooked a different way.
Exactly, but I had absolutely zero adverse reaction to that ceviche, and I ate a ton of it.
Yeah, we kind of overate on it. We overindulged.
The discomfort came from a stomach that was too full.
Yeah.
is what it was.
Yeah. But
So learning that lesson, we came home, and I was thinking about this, and we ended up eating out at a restaurant where there were some good steaks, and I was attracted to the smell of the sizzling steaks, and I decided to eat steak a little bit differently. And instead of eating the medium steak that I always ate before, always gave me trouble.
Shoe leather.
Because, I can't eat raw, undercooked meat, can't do that. I decided to eat it medium rare instead, and with a whole plate of salad, vegetables, and fruits, with a little piece of this medium rare steak that was seasoned to perfection.
Yeah, about 5 ounces, 4 to 5 ounces.
And I prepared myself for the adverse reactions I always have when I eat red meat of any kind. I had none of those. The first time I had not suffered any discomfort from eating red meat was that dinner.
Yeah. So the fact of the matter is, we're not born with a little sack of enzymes that gets used up over time. That is not how it works. We create enzymes every day of our lives, but we create the enzymes out of what we eat. Meat, the enzymes required to digest meat are found in vegetables and in meat, and it's the combination of the two that provide good digestion of meat. Carbohydrates, if we were eating wheat in what's called the cheese state, when you take a grain out in the field and it's done, it's the harvest season, and you pinch that grain between your fingernails and a milk comes out of it, it's soft, it's wet, it's called the cheese state. If we were eating wheat at that natural point where our ancestors actually ate it, it has all the enzyme in it necessary to properly process the gluten. But we don't do that now.
Nope.
We don't do it at all. We eat wheat that has been grown to suit not our bodies as food, but to suit the equipment used to harvest and process it. Yeah. So therein lies the dig. Are we eating food that is grown for the benefit of our bodies, or are we eating food for the benefit of some tractor, some combine, or some processing equipment somewhere? When it's the latter, you will find foods that lack anything necessary to digest it, and there will be diseases caused by that food. When it's the former, when we're eating food that is suited to our bodies, you will find all the elements of that food that make it medicine as well. We have a legend of the legend of the origin of the Nemenhah. They came up this great river and they got into a canyon and there was no food and it was hot and the water was poisonous.
Oh, yeah.
And they climb up on a sandbank and they all decide that it's a good day to die. And one of the young men went down to the water's edge. He had given up all of his food and water early on to an elderly couple, and so he was in worse shape than the rest of them. They had all decided they were just going to die anyway. So he took a knife and he opened the veins on his arm and he put it in the water, well, to die more quickly because it was agonizing. Well, a great big huge fish came up and took a hold of his arm, and it was a big fish. We think it was a sturgeon probably. And he's trying to pull this arm out and it stopped the bleeding, and he's trying to pull his arm. He's making a lot of noise, and the other guys come up and they see this huge, huge fish, and they kill the fish, and suddenly they have food. Well, okay, it's meat, and that's good, but the story goes on to tell us a very instructive tale, and that was the first thing that they did was they opened the belly of the fish, and they pulled out all the green stuff out of the belly of the fish, and they ate that first. And then they ate the fish, and they were saved. Had they eaten the fish before the contents of the belly of the fish, they probably would have died just from the uric acid. So, that's an old cautionary tale that we really ought to be looking at from the vantage of our stump in the middle of the woods, right?
Yeah. Well, now let me ask you a question. I've heard this recently. I don't know if it's true. Well, number one, before I get to that question, I remember my mom used to say, chew your food. Chew your food 30 times. She said because there's enzymes in your mouth that help break down the food, and then your body, it goes through your system. It's just old traditional ways, and I think she was right about that. So.
Well, she was. If you want to prove how right she was, just go to the bathroom and, stand in front of the mirror and smile and tell me what you see. Aside from a very frightening visage, you see teeth in there. There's teeth in there for a reason, okay? Chew your dang food. You're raunchy little kid.
My other question. There's these two questions that have been kind of like hovering in my mind. Fruit, number one. Right now, I hear a lot of people saying that fruit is fattening. The sugar content of fruit is fattening. So I'm like, okay, so if we eat too much fruit, we're going to get fat. Number two
that's
question,
not it.
you guys. Okay. Number two is probiotics are causing people problems now. The probiotics that people buy in the store and they take it and they ingest it. So those are those two. How do you guys want to address that? You guys go from there.
Yeah, if you eat too much fruit, you're not eating enough grain, and that's bad for Monsanto. So yeah. Everybody knows that sugar makes you fat. So stop eating fruit. How really sane is that? Okay, if sugar makes you fat, don't eat sugar. For one thing, fruit.
It's not even the same sugar.
Fruit never made a fat chimpanzee. Ever. You go and you watch, you sit on your stump and you watch nature with all of the plant sugars out there. Find me an obese animal. The closest you can come is a cow, and that cow is standing in a feedlot, and it's fat because it was eating Monsanto corn. Okay? So thank you very much, bear. Now, for probiotics, I would rather that people not take the manufactured probiotics at all. And let me tell you why. We need to have the microflora in our body that is consistent with where we live. Mm-hmm. There is no way that I'm going to get the best and most balanced probiotic for my body from Chicago.
Mm-mm. Plus, they're not going to culture enough of the probiotics you need anyway. There are too many different kinds that we need for digestion.
That's it. Again, we're solving social problems in our garden instead of the Internet. The Internet's not a really good garden. The trouble with probiotics right now is as Jonathan said, they can only do a certain number of the species that we have to have in our gut, and there are thousands of them. And the only way you can do this is by eating raw food.
Yeah.
Raw food, hopefully, that you grew locally. So this is why it's important for all of us, even if we don't grow a garden, to go down to our local farmers market
and find them
and buy food from the farmers markets, because you will get the right flora for your area. Mm-hmm. But buying a bottle of probiotic off the shelf,
that's 80% dead anyway by the time it gets to you.
If it's active, it might help you stop a bout of diarrhea, but there are issues surrounding disbalancing the gut flora with a probiotic product made by a manufacturer that's not interested in the balance.
Right.
That is, what you're reading is largely true. The way they're describing it is not. Most of that advertising is coming from manufacturers who are actually producing
enzymes,
competing products, enzymes. Yeah. So that's not a good approach. The best approach is to find clean sources of food from your area and eat that food in order to to inoculate your body with the right flora from your area. Mm-hmm. When somebody is sick with irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's colitis or something like that, we have them find an organic farm nearby, take a handful of dirt home with them, and we teach people how to make their own probiotic with local, organic, clean earth.
Right inside their pantry.
Right inside their kitchen.
Yeah.
There you go, folks.
I really have
to.
I'm sorry.
Probiotics. I said probiotics is dirt, right? You find probiotics in the dirt.
It is, but the companies that are making it are deciding for you which ones you need. Which 15...
India.
From India, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you very much. Which 15 from India? And bear in mind, they grow these in big vats. They grow mud. they grow poo in big vats, and then they dry it. They put it into a black powder, and they ship it to America to be placed in capsules, and then you swallow their poo. I'm not sure how wise that is. I really am not. I mean, you know, there's a story that I tell often in my seminars about a lady. Yeah, gross. There's a lady in one of my seminars, about 40 people in the room. I didn't hear what he said.
I said, that's nasty. I'm going to put my panda hat on and dance a little bit.
It's true, isn't it? Yeah. There's a lady in one of my seminars who sat right in front, and she was all wrapped up like a mummy, and she was very distracting. And finally, in the middle of the seminar, I said, "What is your story?" She told me about a little rash she got. She's a cleaning lady, and she got a little rash on her wrist, and a neighbor told her a friend of hers told her to put some tea tree oil on there. It would go right away. So she did, and it got worse. And the neighbor told her, well, bathe in that tea tree oil. So she did. She put it in her bath water. It went all over her body. And so now she's wrapped up like a mummy with this rash all over her body. The only thing I could think of for her to do was to go out in her backyard, in her garden, get a handful of dirt, and put it in her bath water. She did. She did this consistently for 3 months. The rash went away. What happened with the tea tree oils is she killed all the other normal bacteria on her body except that bacteria that could survive the tea tree oil. This is largely what manufacturers of probiotic are doing.
Yeah.
They're disbalancing the flora inside the body instead of seeking a balance. How do we get that flora? We eat vegetables grown in soil. Okay, don't eat poo. Preferably.
There you go.
I really have to agree. Don't buy that. Why do you swallow that? Why would you eat that? Why would you eat that? That's gross.
It's because somebody gave them a great idea that was good for you. You know,
we're really
emotional. We're emotional creatures, and we believe things that we hear. You know, it's kind of like the essential oil fads too. No, but I'm just saying, there's people.
Oh, don't even get me
started. We don't have there's time in the show to go there. Don't even give me.
We got half
get me started on.
We got a half an hour. We got a half an hour. The essential oil. The essential oil is very dangerous right now. I believe truly in my heart that a lot of people have really been damaged and have had some serious issues because everybody's the pseudo doctors, you know, out there, and these companies just teach you stuff and they don't teach people properly how to use this stuff. I remember when I first bought my first essential, I was like, I don't even know how to use this. I put it on my skin. I put it in the air. I dance. You know.
You put it all over, and then you drink some.
No.
Yeah, you just put it to your lips and just swallow that right on down. That tea tree oil is perfect for your gut. It kills everything.
You can be replaced.
It kills everything. Yeah. Yeah, the point is it kills. It is really strong medicine. And if you know how to use it, it can be very effective for the right reasons. But people are not taught how strong a medicine it is. And why would Young Living Oil not teach people really how strong this medicine is and how it kills everything? Why would they not teach you that? Because they want you to use too much of it. They want you to have to buy more.
You get sick, you buy more.
You buy more.
You get sicker, you buy more.
You swallow more until you have a beautiful wooden case with 200 little bottles of really strong medicine, and then you're sucking it all down like it's Darjeeling. You just can't do that. You know, you just can't do it. Your body is not made to drink paint stripper. Here's the test.
I love this.
Here's a test that I love. Everybody should have one metal door in their house. If they don't have one metal door, they should have a light that's metal that's painted. Or they should have something in their house that's painted with metal paint.
Yeah.
Something with an oil-based metal paint. Take any of the essential oils and put 20 drops or 5 drops, I don't care, on that metal. And report back to me in 10 days what you see. Yeah? Better yet, take the bottle, put 3 drops on your antique dresser, and then place the bottle right side up on top of the drops with the lid on, and wait 1 day on top of your $1,000 antique dresser. Pick up that bottle and wipe it off with a handkerchief and tell me what you see. You will not be calling me any pleasant names at that point. I understand. I have very thick skin. I'm okay. But if it's doing that to your $1,000 antique dresser,
a sealed, varnished,
what is it doing?
water-resistant surface.
Right.
Yeah.
What is it doing to the organics of your body? Don't believe anybody who will tell you that this is the kind of thing that is safe to swallow.
Yeah. Look, when people argue about tea tree oil, thieves oil, really another example.
Helichrysum.
Another example is to take a plastic beaker, something PET or HDPE, some plastic beaker or plastic cup, and mix up some oils in it. Take a little bit of your carrier oil, mix up your essential oils, and
don't use glass or ceramic. Use plastic to do it.
Just use plastic.
Yeah.
Soon enough, you'll be able to run your finger, and I guarantee this, if you're using as much oil as they put in these little capsules to swallow.
Right.
If you use that much oil, not just, the 2 or 3 drops you put in a carrier for topical use.
20 to 40 drops goes in a little capsule.
Right. You mix that in a plastic beaker of PET plastic or HDPE, BPA-free, what have you.
Gluten-free plastic.
When you're finished, you'll be able to run your finger down the inside surface of that plastic, and it will not be smooth.
It'll be rough.
It will have corroded the plastic.
So if it can do that to plastic, what is it doing to the organic structures in your body? Stop swallowing that. It's designed to go gently on the skin or to be used as aromatherapy. This is what it was used for. This is how it was designed over tens of thousands of years. And in the last 40 years of Young Living Oil,
we started swallowing this stuff.
We started swallowing this stuff. Please do not believe them. doTERRA. Now, all of you out there who are swallowing essential oils and swearing by it, take our number, take our website down, get our email, because I guarantee you will be talking to somebody like me, somebody like Jonathan, at some point to save your life. Stop now or know who to call later.
Yep. It wasn't 30 minutes, but it worked.
Yeah, I kind of have an opinion about that, don't I? Yeah.
No. It's important. I mean, if we're talking about, food as medicine, essential oil is a food that's been concentrated down into a liquid, and it has to be used properly. It's like the tequila I was talking about earlier. It's an essential oil too. You've taken the essence of the plant and you squeezed it out. You can. You drink it, and it gives you it does things to your body. It makes you drunk.
Iggy.
It makes you hallucinate. It can also make you sick.
Iggy.
I know that
tequila.
voice.
Tequila is bacteria poo. Okay.
Hey.
It's bacteria poo. That's what no, it isn't. It's not that. I'm just kidding you. Not to worry. Go ahead.
I know that.
Just don't drink too much.
You're like, no, but that's the thing. That's why I wanted to bring you both onto this show and share the knowledge that you have, that you've obtained over the years of just trial and error and studying and working together and sharing the messages that you do. And I want my friends here who are online listening and on the radio and on this live stream feed to get to know you, to get connected with you, to get connected with somebody who's in this work and who knows, what they're talking about. There are so many people out there, who give so much misinformation, not because they're trying to hurt somebody, but it's something they just learn. And a lot of people don't do research on things. They just kind of go with a meme that they saw, online, and then they pass it along. Next thing you know, 10 people do it, and then 10 more people do it. That's got to stop a little bit. I've been guilty of that myself, and I have to stop doing that. But that's why the pyramid was so important to me. When I saw that on this pyramid, folks, the biggest part of this plate design that they have is vegetables. It's the greens. It's the things you have to eat, and the other parts are smaller. I remember, Claude Pollard, when you told me when you have a steak meal and you have so many ounces, you have to have so many ounces of greens that go along with it. So I find that very important.
4 to 6 times.
Yep.
I remember when I told you that. You remember that story? The first time I came out there to Ohio, I told the story of when I went to that, when I went and taught all those doctors and nurses, and I gave that demonstration that if you've got a nice, you draw the circle. This was on an old-fashioned overhead projector, and you draw the circle of the plate, and you put your steak on there, and it's a big honking steak, and you have your big mass of potatoes, mashed potatoes. I always draw 5 green beans, just 5, because that's what it looks like, right? You got your steak, you got your mashed potatoes, and you got these 5 green beans, and the green beans are only on there for ethics, right?
Yeah.
Like the sprig of parsley on there.
And the vegetables in the food pyramid.
Yeah, the vegetables in the food. Right. It's 5 and only 5 green beans. And I drew this, and everybody laughed. 150 people laughed. And then, I said, no, if you're going to eat this plate of food, you're going to have 5 to 6 plates of stir-fry vegetables or lightly steamed vegetables or something like that, just to balance the acid-forming potential of what you just ate. In the uric acid of the meats and the acids produced by fermentation and inflammation from the starch of the potatoes and, the lack of everything that was in those 5, anemic little green beans that were on the plate. You're going to have to 5 or 6. So after the thing, it was a great success. After the thing, we went to we went to Outback. Yeah. Outback Steakhouse. We had one of my students foot the bill, and so if somebody's going to pay and take you to a restaurant like that, they have baby ribs, they're lamb, and they're cooked to perfection, and they have this little bowl of plum compote. Oh, it's so good, and you put it. I don't even want to talk about it right now. It's so good, You have the bloomin' onion and everything. So I ordered this thing. It was cooked to absolute perfection. It was just like that. You've got the 16 ounces of baby lamb. You've got your little 2 ounces of plum compote. You got this mass of mashed potatoes, and
a whole bloomin' onion.
I had a whole bloomin' onion as the appetizer, and then you get your 5 little green beans, or maybe 2, slices of carrot. How they crinkle slice the carrot, and one little flower of cauliflower, and that was your vegetable, right? Yeah. So we start eating. I remember telling you a version of this story, and this was years and years ago. My gosh, it must be 10 years ago. And the waiter started bringing out steamed vegetables on plates. And those tables at Sizzler, or at not Sizzler, Outback. But Outback restaurant are pretty big, and he starts covering the table with plates of lightly steamed vegetables. And when the whole we thought maybe there was a party coming in or something like that, a reservation. So we're just eating. We're eating our meat and just loving every bit of it. And then the waiter comes out. The whole table is covered next to us with steamed vegetables, and he just stands there with his arms folded, tapping his foot with his face. He's making this face, and I look up and I said, "What?" And he informed me that he had just come from a seminar where a naturopath said that if you're going to eat a plate, and I was like, caught.
Here it comes.
Oh, crap. You were at my seminar. And he stood there, and he watched us try to eat all those vegetables. And it just hammered it home. It's true, though. When do you ever need 16 ounces of lamb?
You don't.
When is 16 ounces of meat ever good? Oh, it's fantastic.
It's really good.
It's marvelous. It's ambrosia. It's the food of the gods. But when do you ever need 16 ounces of lamb? It would take me half a week to balance.
Yeah.
With the usual amount of vegetables that you would normally eat, it'd take you half a week. You do that very often, and you're just flat going to be sick. Well, the guy who paid for the meal then went to stay for a week at a hunting lodge of his friends, and he came back in a wheelchair. They had eaten so much meat that he got gout so badly that he couldn't even walk for weeks after that, and it hammered it home. Absolutely. you teach a thing, you know that it's true, you have abundant examples of just how accurate it is, and you really ought to follow that rule. And I find that when I do follow that rule, I feel wonderful.
You're much easier to live with.
I am much less grouchy, and the hair grows back on my head. No, that's a lie. But when I break the rule, that's when I hurt the most. I hurt in my joints. I've broken my back. I've hurt myself. That's when I hurt the most, is when I break my own rule. And again, it's pastry that I love, and it's meat that I love.
Pizza for me. It's totally pizza for me. That's my vice.
Everybody has these things, and they need to understand that if we can balance that with raw or nearly raw as you can handle it, vegetables, fruits, and nuts, it's going to be okay. We will have what it takes because of what we mindfully ate as well. But, eating 16 ounces of lamb is not mindful.
No, it's not.
We got to back off on the amount of that stuff that we eat, right?
And our orientation when it comes to training people how to eat, how to correct their diet, is not a diet of exclusion of food items. It's a diet of inclusion. If we're looking at the items that they're eating, and because one of the things that we do is gather in the data for their daily dietary routine, their average day. What do they eat? What do they drink? We look at the pattern that is their day, their
morning,
their nutritional
noon,
day.
Evening, the snacks, everything they eat, and one thing that we're finding is predominantly they do follow that food pyramid that you're talking about, and they're sick, and that should be our first dead giveaway, right?
And so one of the first questions they ask was like, what should I not eat? And we respond, usually, it's not about what you shouldn't eat here if their diet is relatively, if the food items themselves are relatively okay. If it's fast food, we're going to tell them to stop.
Well, of course.
It's more what they're not including in their diet.
Right.
We focus more on diversity than restricting the diet. And that's what rubs me wrong about all these fad diets that are trending on the internet today. There's so many diets that restrict such good food.
Oh, the lectin diet. Can you imagine?
That's a perfect example. And the yeast-free diet.
Yeah, if you're going to go the Candida diet and the lectin diet, what do you get to eat? There's no better formula for a breatharian diet I can think of than the lectin and the yeast-free diet. There's no such thing as a breatharian diet. You've got to eat, and you've got to eat a diversity of nutrient, because we are opportunistic omnivores. The same kind of food was never, ever available all year round. Every couple of months, the food that we ate was different. That's how we grew up evolutionarily, and that is really more the way we should be eating now. Every 3 months or so, the food that we eat probably ought to be diversified.
So one of the strategies that we use that help people get back to a state, physical condition where they can eat the food they used to eat, is to begin introducing phytonutrients into their diet in the form of other fruits and vegetables.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes it's as simple as adding a fresh green smoothie once, twice a day, just to get them started. Especially if their schedules don't allow them the luxury of spending the time it takes to cook good food.
That would be the same as changing up the diet every 3 to 4 months. You're really doing what we did through evolutionary history.
You just throw different vegetables, you throw different fruits together in a blender, you chop it all up and drink it down. Food is the medicine. There's so much packed into that supplemental food.
If you can eat the same thing over and over because it tastes good, or because some journalist or advertiser told you that you should. I don't make good decisions when I decide by what some journalist says what to put in my mouth. Those are the worst decisions you can possibly make if you're deciding what to put in your mouth based upon some journalist somewhere.
I tend to spend way more money than if I take the time to actually study a thing myself.
True story.
All right, let's take a break real quick, come back with a closing statements, and I'm enjoying this show. I hope you're enjoying the show, guys. We're right back.
You are listening to WithinsightsRadio.com,
your free online resource for achieving self-discovery and inspiration. With Insights Radio is a listener-supported radio station, and your donations are greatly appreciated. We cover a variety of topics, interviews surrounding the metaphysical and holistic and natural medicine, alternative healing modalities, and much more. Thank you for tuning in to WithinsightsRadio.com. You are listening to WithinsightsRadio.com on the Blog Talk Radio Network, your free online holistic publication resource radio for trusting your intuition, achieving self-discovery, and following your soul self.
Dig the 70s music.
You are listening to Iggy Garcia Live with my host, Philiip Cloudfiler, Dr. Philiip Cloudfiler, and Dr. Jonathan Landis. We're here today, and we're about to wrap it up now. So for those of you who have missed the show, this is like almost a 2-hour show, go back and listen. There's some really good information here, and I guarantee you that you're going to get hooked. You're going to want to know more. You're going to get really excited. You're going to go, wow, I'm kind of maybe doing it a little bit wrong. We're not here to punish you and parent you, but we're here to remind you that, sometimes we need a little bit of help and a little bit of reminders to kind of do things maybe a little bit better. And, I'm just as guilty as the next person. I like candy bars sometimes, and sometimes I go off the wagon, and sometimes I'm on the wagon. So don't get too caught up in that. But like I said, there's good information here. My friends are here to help, and, I'll send the information online as we're talking. I'm going to give them the floor for some closing statements here. We have about 5 minutes left. And I hope you've enjoyed the show. Reach out to them, send them a message, give them a little bit of, feedback. Get to know them. They're amazing people. The Nemenhah Ministry is amazing. Spirit Winds is doing some amazing stuff. And so I can't stress how important it is to know what we're eating. And the food is our medicine. All right, guys, welcome back. I really, really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I really love you guys.
It's been a real pleasure.
You guys are just rocking.
It's been a pleasure and a privilege and an honor. One thing we haven't touched on, though, is something that we do in the apothecary, and that is that sometimes you need medicine. And as drugless physicians, we don't use the synthetic. We make the medicines.
Yeah.
We consider the manufactured supplements to be, they're synthetic drugs as far as we're concerned. As apothecaries, we compound for the individual because there are no cookie cutter sufferers out there. And sometimes while you're getting your diet more diverse, more worked around, changes in behavior and diet behavior, sometimes you got to have a leg up. You got to have help. And so we will listen to you, ask you the right questions, get a complete history, and find out what is going on. What the heck is going on with you?
Yeah.
And then we will compound what is necessary. And I guarantee that will not be a whole bunch of bottles that cover your kitchen table like we see so often. It'll be 1 or 2 bottles of liquid. And you'll take 1 or 2 teaspoons at a time, a couple of times a day, and it is food that has specifically been concentrated and made into medicine. But it's all food.
It's all fresh.
All fresh.
Yeah.
All new and all compounded specifically for you. That is that's our motto. That's one of our mottos. It's what we do. And give us a call, give us a conversation, let us know what's going on with you, and we will compound your supplement for you that possibly no one else in the world has access to, because nobody out there has their own private compounding apothecary. But you have a compounding apothecary that's as close as your telephone or as close as Skype. Get with us. We can help you.
Awesome. And Jonathan, anything you want to add?
Not especially. We've covered a lot of ground today.
2 hours.
2
hour show.
You picked our favorite topics, so that really helps. Food is medicine. That's
it's my favorite.
We go.
It's my favorite topic.
Yeah. In our consultations with our supplicants, a lot of the conversation I would have to say probably 70% of the conversation is all
food.
about food, and a little bit about the herbs we might be using with them to help them get the leg up as they're bringing their life back around, their health back.
And even that is the form of food.
But even then it's food.
We don't give powders. We don't give over-processed herbs. They are carefully extracted and made in a liquid form that is immediately useful to the body.
Yeah, be kind to the body. That's one of our mottos. Be kind to the body with food. Be kind to the body with herbs. Good food is always kind.
Yeah, it is.
Good, real food with moderation that's mostly plant, to build on some of the things that have been said by other competent researchers in food. Good food is the key to good health.
It is. Good food, not just food.
Awesome. Well, that's my assistant. She's telling me I got 90 seconds. I want to thank you guys for being on the show with me. And I will catch up with you. And I want to thanks again. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on.
Hey, thank you for having us. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Walk sacred,
love you guys.
man.
Take care. Walk sacred. Talk sacred, too. Watch the tequila.
A little of that.
All right, guys. That's our show. We're done. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it resonates with you in some way. I hope it touched your heart. I hope that it sparked something in your mind, something that just said, hey, wait a minute, maybe I need to rethink this, a lot of us get caught in fad diets. A lot of us get caught in, misinformation. I'm just as guilty as everybody. And it's always good to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about and kind of help you. And, get to know the farmer. Get to know where your food gets processed, where your food's grown, where it comes from, and who's making it. Because the more you know and the more you're in tune and you're in that rhythm with who you are, it's going to help you. You're going to be in a good place. So with that, I want to thank you guys for being on the show with me tonight. I'll be back next Monday, either with another guest or just myself. I'll talk to you soon. Be well.